January 2003, a psychic has a vision of a violent murder in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
I felt terrified.
She sees the killer's face.
He had black hair, he had brown eyes, he had a very round, full face.
But her description is ignored by the police. A serial killer is on the loose. More women could die if no one listens. In May 2002, Murray Pace, a 22-year-old graduate assistant at Louisiana State University, leaves work early to attend a friend's wedding. 2 hours later, her roommate returns to the apartment to find her brutally murdered. In the following weeks, 3 more women are attacked. The Baton Rouge police then announced that DNA evidence links Murray Pace's murder to that of 2 other women. They are now dealing with a vicious serial killer who might also be behind the savage rape and murder of a number of other women in the area since 1990. The town is gripped by fear.
It was panic. You had ladies asking for self-defense courses. You had a major sale in pepper spray. People were worried about their daughters.
To catch the killer, the Baton Rouge Police Department sets up a task force together with the FBI and other local forces. Detective McDavid with the Zachary Police suggests as prime suspect a local peeping Tom who's been causing trouble for years.
Evidently, we put so much pressure on him that he began moving into the Baton Rouge area.
Unfortunately, he doesn't match the serial killer profile used by the FBI.
The majority of the profiles that we were getting from the FBI at the time were generic. Pretty much a white male in his mid-30s that lives at home, lives with his mother, or a loner.
The Zachary suspect is ignored. The FBI have witnesses to back up their profile. One reports a white male driving a pickup truck with a naked female slumped on the passenger seat. She looked dead. It was near the Whiskey Bay exit on Interstate 10, close to where the body of another victim had been found. Another witness sees a suspicious-looking white man near where a woman had been killed while visiting her mother's grave. She'd been beaten to death. By December 2002, the serial killer has taken 2 more women. A white man is seen near one of the bodies. The task force starts taking DNA samples of thousands of white males.
They were taking DNA samples from people that they thought may have had some connection in the neighborhood where the homicides occurred, or people that drove a white truck, or males that were in a certain age bracket.
At the end of December, the task force released their first composite sketch of the killer. He's a 25 to 35-year-old white male, apparently physically strong and awkward with women. But 6 months later, they still have no suspect. Ann Williams, a forensics consultant and former lawyer, teaches a college course in forensic investigation. She's worked on a number of cold cases and wants to help out on this one.
I knew there was talk of a serial killer. And I decided to call Jeannie Borgen, who has worked some cases with me as a police psychic. And I had contacted Murray's mother, Ann Pace, and gotten Murray's birth information, which is what Jeannie needs to work on these cases as a psychic.
Murray's mother decides to join Ann's forensics class.
She wanted to be there for Murray. She said that she was there when Murray was born, and she couldn't be there when it mattered most, when Murray died.
Ann Williams called me, and she told me she had a woman in her class by the name of Ann Pace, and that she had lost a daughter and that she had been murdered. I had Murray's birth certificate, name, and birth date, And I use that as a method of psychometry. In other words, I'm touching and I'm examining the name, and then I get the vision. I sort of ask for the vision mentally.
Anne often has forensics experts call in and talk to students on the speakerphone about cases they've worked on. So she sets up a conference call with Jean in California.
Well, we're all here to talk to you, my class.
The first thing that I saw was a house. Very neat house, a neat manicured lawn, very peaceful. I had seen him on a street corner looking at the apartment building. She didn't know him, but she had seen him. So he was familiar to her. She was not overwhelmed or frightened. He can be very personable. But suddenly he got very violent, and he attacked. This girl fought back. For every blow she got, she gave him one. But he had a knife. And it was a brutal fight. And I was stuck in the picture. I couldn't get out. I knew that the final moments that she had to die with something of the throat. And he did. He did cut her throat. I felt terrified. It was like Murray and I were one at that point. I had to sit there and watch her die. It was really hard. As it ended, he straightened up and he looked at me. And it was like I was looking eye to eye with him. I started shaking inside, and then I had little butterflies, and then he disappeared. When I looked at him, I thought he was probably about 5'10" to 6 feet. He was Afro-American. He had black hair, he had brown eyes, he had a very round, full face, and then he had this little goatee. He had a mustache, but then there was other times that I picked him up, he did not have a mustache.
Someone in the class asked her, well, what's he wearing, this Baton Rouge serial killer? She said, well, right now, she says, I'm seeing him in blue Dickies. And I said, well, what are Dickies? I mean, I didn't even know. And the class laughed, and they said, those are work pants, you know.
With Murray's mother verifying the known details of the murder, the class are stunned by the realism of the psychic's vision. But Ann Williams is uneasy.
When Jean first described the serial killer as being a light-complected black man, I just thought she was off. I didn't believe it. Because, you know, statistically, he would be a white man, and that's what they said they were looking for.
Can Anne's investigation be of any help to the task force if Jeannie's vision is so off on such a key point? January 2003. Baton Rouge is being terrorized by a serial killer. A task force is set up to catch him. They believe he's a white man and take DNA samples of over 2,000 men. But 6 months later, they still have no suspect. Forensics consultant Ann Williams wants to help. She involves her friend, psychic Jeannie Borgen, who has a stark vision of the murder of one of the killer's victims. But in her vision, the killer is a light-skinned African-American. Ann thinks she's wrong.
Ann was right. You don't positively make a statement about a suspect until you're absolutely certain.
But Anne has worked with Jeannie before, and the psychic's accurate description of the murder persuades her not to give up too easily. Over the following months, Jeannie has constant visions of the killer.
I was tuning in on him every night. He was in the car a lot.
She sees him at Whiskey Bay off Interstate 10, where the bodies of 2 earlier victims were found. Jeannie is convinced there are more. With her friend, Chip Bowman, Ann Williams tries to find the places Jeannie sees in her visions. If they find another body, it might lead them to the killer. They photograph likely locations and send her the pictures.
I think probably if we take pictures anywhere around here, it'll be helpful to Jeannie, because who knows where he would have dumped somebody. Then we could go back the opposite end where Pam Kennemore's body was found, to that north area, that wooded area that Jeannie's interested in, and take some shots of that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Well, it's very, very hard because I have to have a fix. I have to see a certain tree, or I have to see something that looks like what I'm seeing.
Jeannie tries to guide them through the landscapes of her visions.
I can't believe this, Jeannie. We're actually seeing what you're telling us.
Listen, you need to go to your right. There's going to be a big line of trees there. Yeah, all right, now wait a minute. When he walked into the line of trees, there was like a culvert there and he tripped.
There is a dip in the ground, just like you said. I cannot believe this.
But finding a body in this vast wilderness requires a massive search, and time is running out. Jeannie begins to sense the killer's moods.
He really did not like women, especially women who were mentally above him, or he felt superior to him.
These women were basically the same. They were professional women. I mean, we had 2 homicides in Zachary, which is in the parish, that were fairly consistent with what was happening in Baton Rouge.
It was almost a hate sexual type of a situation.
Jeannie senses the killer is ready to strike again.
The energy had been building in him as he watched the person for maybe weeks.
He did a lot of surveillance, what we can tell, on these victims' houses. He knew their movements, knew when they come outside, he knew who was at the house.
And then when it got powerful in the body, he went for it. I knew that this was a man who had to kill.
As the killer's bloodlust becomes stronger, Jeannie has a terrible vision.
I thought I had another victim. And then suddenly I realized she's alive. And it was like, oh my God, she's alive. And she's gonna be one of the future victims. And then at that point I thought, but where is she? Where do I go from here?
The killer is already stalking his next victim. As Jeannie tries desperately to see where the attack might happen, the landscape of her visions becomes more recognizable.
He stood one night looking out at the water, and I saw these beautiful white birds fly over the water. That was I think that was at the foot of Stanford Avenue.
2 of the killer's victims had lived on Stanford Avenue. Does his new victim also live here? With time running out, Anne and Chip scour the area.
The next thing I got was a house. It was a greenhouse. It had 2 trees on both sides, like this, like a frame, and it had bushes in front. That had to be where she lived. But I couldn't quite figure out, I couldn't get anything that would give me a sign as to where it was at.
And then finally a breakthrough. Anne and Chip locate one of Jeannie's visions.
He went to this place that was sort of a little restaurant with a big television. When I got the picture of this little restaurant, it wasn't much, but I was overjoyed that they had found it, because I thought that he'd probably frequent that a lot.
But tragically, they are too late. On March 13, 2003, the body of 26-year-old Carrie Yoder is found at Whiskey Bay. Once again, the killer had been careful not to leave any fingerprints.
But he did leave one important evidence on the body, that was his DNA, which is similar to a fingerprint.
DNA evidence shows she's a victim of the same man who killed Murray Pace. The man the task force are convinced is white, but who appears in Jeannie's visions as a light-skinned African-American.
But as far as the description of this light-complected black man, I just didn't buy that. He's white. She's wrong.
Then, some days later, while talking to Murray's old roommate, Anne makes an extraordinary discovery.
She told me about some neighbors of Murray's who had seen a suspicious man standing across the street staring at Murray's townhouse the morning she was murdered. They each went to the police that day and gave their description. None of them knew the other had seen him, but the police weren't interested. They had a profile they were working from that this is a white man. So they just totally ignored credible witnesses that day.
So the neighbors posted their testimonies on a well-known website.
Said that this guy was a light-complected black man wearing blue Dickies with a wannabe goatee. And I said, you gotta be kidding. I was trying to figure out, well, the police won't come do a sketch, so what can I do? So I wound up ordering some software that the police use.
Together with Karen Savoy, one of Murray's neighbors, Anne puts together a composite sketch of the man they saw watching Murray's house the day she was murdered.
I don't see anything there. Could we, go down? Let's try 812.
Wanna try it?
No, I don't think so. And
No.
rounded on the.
So it needs
on the
flatter?
tip. Yes.
Okay,
But
we'll
not,
keep going.
not as broad as the one that I liked. I think
about-
it was 836.
What about that one?
Jeannie confirms this is the man she saw in her visions. Anne sends it to the task force.
Anne and I were talking constantly about what we could do to get the police to recognize that this was a black man, not a white man. But they just didn't seem to look at it as far as we knew.
Once we got these sketches and everything, I drafted a letter, and I put their verbal description of this guy, because that's the most important thing, and how to reach these witnesses, and that they really would like to speak with law enforcement and hopefully do a professional sketch. And I sent that, I overnighted it to Governor Foster, and then to the task force, and I didn't get any response from them.
But when she tried to produce the sketch to the task force, they turned it down. They didn't want to hear about it. It was a white male they were looking for.
Although the police agree that the witnesses all saw the same man, Anne is not allowed to release the sketch.
He said, well, you know, we already have a sketch. We don't want another sketch out there. You're not a professional sketch artist. I said, well, I know. I said, but who did your other sketch? You know, from Lafayette. He said, well, that was a professional sketch artist. I said, well, that sketch doesn't look like anybody on this planet.
A month later, in April 2003, police in nearby Zachary received fresh complaints about a peeping Tom in a neighborhood where 2 women were previously raped and murdered.
The neighbor across the street here called in and stated that a black male was standing at this window right here, peeping into this window. The lady that lived here was a school teacher. She was a single mom who had 1 child here. We saw several footprints here at the windowsill. We followed these prints, and they went around the corner right here and went down the fence line right here and took off in the neighborhood.
Zachary police think it's the same peeping Tom who some years earlier they suspected of a vicious attack on 2 teenagers with a machete at the local cemetery.
2 teenagers were parking in the graveyard here. It was a very stormy night, a lot of lightning going on. One of our officers came down the road right here and saw the dome light on in the car, knowing that nobody's supposed to be in the graveyard at that time of night. He come in here and stopped and got his flashlight out and checked and saw 2 teenagers in there covered in blood. And they began screaming. He called for help, stated a black male had came to them and began cutting them up with a big hack blade. He saw the police officer drive up. He reached back in the car and took a set of keys and fled the scene.
Working with the victims, police did a sketch of the attacker. It looks just like the peeping Tom. His name is Todd Lee. They suggested him to the task force, but they aren't interested in a black peeping Tom. They believe the serial killer is white. If they won't listen to colleagues, reliable witnesses, or even an experienced psychic, how many more women will die before the killer is caught? A savage serial killer is preying on the town of Baton Rouge. The police are hunting a white man, but psychic Jeannie Borgen believes he's African American. And while Ann Williams and photographer Chip Bowman try to find the places she sees him in, the killer strikes again. Meanwhile, police in nearby Zachary think the killer could be a black peeping Tom who's been plaguing their town for years. With fresh complaints of the peeping Tom in their area, Zachary police now reopen the file of their main suspect, Derek Todd Lee. Apart from his peeping Tom offenses, Lee has also been in jail for various burglaries and for beating his girlfriend.
We worked out a timeline, and we saw where he had a job, when he didn't have a job.
The timeline showed them something startling.
When he was in prison, we didn't have no murders. When he was out, we began having problems in the area.
Meanwhile, in Baton Rouge, the task force get lucky. There were witnesses to the abduction of Carrie Yoder. Police now release a second sketch of the serial killer and announced that he could in fact be of any race, not necessarily white. This is sweet music to McDavid's ears.
In the back of your mind, you want to go out and say, I told you so.
Was a likeness of a black male that was also similar to a sketch that was produced by Ann Williams.
Now psychic Jeannie Borgen has a terrifying premonition. The killer is about to strike again.
At this point, I knew he would kill if he had the chance.
But the clues are too vague. Ann Williams feels helpless to prevent it.
She says, well, I'm getting a woman missing in Alabama. And she said she's a pretty brunette. And I said, well, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about a woman in Alabama.
Then, Melinda McGee disappears from her home in Mobile, Alabama. Her body is never found. Finally, in May 2003, McDavid gets a court order to take a DNA swab from Derek Todd Lee.
My partner, Trevor Hannah, and me drove up there, and we found him out in the yard. He saw me get out the vehicle and began getting upset and told them to tell me to leave. He knew, that I was after him. In 1998, I interviewed Lee in the Mayberry murder. And after interviewing him, I looked him in his face, because he was real cocky. And I told him, so I know what you did, I'm gonna get you one day.
The sample is sent to the crime lab to be analyzed. Lee now takes his 2 children out of school and leaves town. Some days later, the analyst at the DNA lab makes the discovery that seals Lee's fate. His DNA matches that of the serial killer. McDavid is called in to see the task force.
I walked in, everybody just, their eyes were on me. And I kind of glanced back and looked around, and I'm not for sure who said it. They come up to me and said, y'all just solved the serial killer. Y'all's DNA swab matched the serial killer. Oh, I was elated. I was excited. Tears came to my eyes.
The task force now officially identify the serial killer. It's Derek Todd Lee. Police track Lee to a cheap motel in Atlanta. The officers just miss him as they arrive. Following a tip-off, they finally arrest him outside a tire store.
The minute I heard his name, it was like, that's him. They got him. It was just pure elation.
On the 12th of October 2004, a jury takes just 80 minutes to find Derek Todd Lee guilty of the first-degree murder of Charlotte Murray Pace. He's also indicted for the murders of 6 other women.
This is the kind of case, these serial killings, where a psychic can be very helpful because you don't have a DNA database. And oftentimes, people are surprised to learn many police agencies are not well trained or well equipped to deal with these kinds of stranger killings.
This case was very difficult because it was like working on 15 cases rather than just one case. I got frustrated, so frustrated that I couldn't get on top of him fast enough to catch him.
It was a relief off my shoulders because since 1992 we've been battling these murders, and And I made a commitment to myself before I retired I was going to solve these murders.
I would hope that the sketch we did maybe helped convince them that Derek Todd Lee was the man they were after. I hope so.
Lee is given the death penalty and is awaiting execution at Angola prison.
It was a victory for law enforcement. It was a victory for our city. In the town of Zachary, you know, people still leave their doors unlocked, you know, and not looking over their shoulders. And now they can still do that. They can go out and walk freely and not worry about that.
Birmingham, England, January 2002. A young man vanishes. Police think he's a runaway, but a psychic has a vision of a brutal murder.
His head was pushed down and he had a blow to the head. He's describing this as if he's watching himself. He's also shown me that he's been buried underwater.
Can she convince the cops a killer is on the loose and put him behind bars? Or will the mystery surrounding this young man's disappearance remain unsolved forever?
It was really horrific. It was frightening.
Birmingham, a bustling city in the heart of England and a centre of business and finance. But like any major city, Birmingham has its problems. Over 23,000 violent crimes were committed last year. Detective Daly is a cop whose job it is to catch the culprits. But when good old police methods fail to find missing local man Mark Green, it's to this woman, Diane Lazarus, that she turns. Diane Lazarus is a psychic, and today she's in Birmingham to help Detective Daly solve the riddle of Mark's disappearance. The story starts here in January 2002. 31-year-old Mark Green is out with a friend in the city centre. When he doesn't return home, his parents begin to worry.
They called the police quite soon after the concerns became quite concrete, and they reported Mark as a missing person.
Detective Marcella Daly is placed in charge of the missing person inquiry.
Mark was a 31-year-old man that came from the Stetchard area of Birmingham. He was a lecturer at a local college in art and design. He had a great bunch of friends, two very loving parents and a very good supportive family setup.
Mark's disappearance sends shockwaves through Birmingham's gay community. No one can understand why he would go missing or where he would go. Detective Daly's first task is to interview Mark's friend.
Mark's friend wasn't treated as a suspect as such, however, he was a vital person within this missing person investigation, and he held vital information, and he was incredibly supportive towards the investigation.
He tells officers what happened on the night in question.
The night that Mark disappeared, he went out with some friends, decided that he was going to go on to another club, and his friend took the bus home. Mark was last seen alive on the 17th of January, outside, actually leaving the nightclub called Kudos in Birmingham city centre. He was seen leaving through the main doors, and then he was later seen just outside by CCTV.
There are tens of thousands of closed-circuit television or CCTV cameras in Birmingham, but unfortunately Mark is only seen by one. Police make appeals on local radio for information about Mark's disappearance.
You're listening to Birmingham City News. It's Monday, the 28th of January. West Midlands Police are launching an appeal for information relating to the disappearance of 31-year-old college lecturer Mark Green. Mark was last seen in the city centre on Thursday evening. There is concern for his safety and police...
But no new information comes forward. In desperation, Detective Daly hits the streets and begins interviewing hundreds of potential witnesses.
Hi. Can I just let you have a look at that, please? It's a missing person inquiry. This is a missing person inquiry. This is a missing person inquiry. Missing person inquiry. Have you seen this person at all?
No, I haven't.
Have you seen this person at all?
Not at all.
Can I just give you that? Okay, thank you. There was obviously contact with a range of friends and also friends that perhaps he had lost contact with. There was also contact with other areas that he'd been to in his life, whether it be university or friends that he'd visited. There was nobody that came to light that would have any need or intention to hurt Mark in any way.
The police are baffled by the case. It seems Mark just disappeared into thin air. For Mark's parents, waiting for news of their son is heartbreaking.
Anne and Don Green, throughout this investigation, were incredibly brave and have my utmost respect. It's very difficult to actually wake up every day knowing that your son's not there and nobody can find him and nobody can explain whilst he's not there.
It's now been 2 months since Mark went missing. Over 150 miles away in Wales, psychic Diane Lazarus is holding a private séance for a woman called Myron Green. She wants to contact her daughter who died the previous year.
The reading is taped for you, just in case his message is passed on for other people. I'll not only talk about you, I'll talk about your family members as well.
Diane's séances are incredibly detailed. To help her clients remember what is said, she records everything to tape.
I've got a young lady coming through called Sian, and I feel that she passed over in an accident. She's saying that she loves you. She's now bringing in a gentleman called Mark. She's putting her arm right around him and bringing him forward. And she's saying that he's definitely passed over.
Diane thinks that the man is Mark Green. She didn't know that Mark is Myron's nephew or that the police think he's a missing person. Was he in fact dead?
I hadn't heard anything about Mark Green at all, in all honesty. You know, the first I heard of Mark was literally through doing that reading.
Yes, this is definitely a gentleman called Mark.
But that's my nephew and he's only missing. He's not dead.
I remember Myra was literally shaking her head saying, no, you can't have him. So I went in to describe Mark.
He's got brown hair. He's got a lovely smile. He's saying he likes art. He's also shown me steps towards a college, so I feel he worked in a college. He showed me he used to carry a rucksack. He was always in a rush.
Well, that's my nephew. He's a lecturer, but he's not dead.
He's definitely passed over in the spirit world. He's quite distressed because he's saying that
Diane's description is so accurate, Myron has no choice but to believe. She's very upset, but worse is to come.
Mark is telling me that he's not missing. He has not walked away from his parents. He's quite distressed because he's saying that he's been murdered.
I don't think for 1 minute that she expected this to happen, simply because she thought she was coming for a reading, she might have a message from her daughter, but she was really taken back by the fact that I had Mark in front of me.
Diane describes what she believes happened to Mark on the night he disappeared.
He's saying that he went to a nightclub, and as he walked from there, he was attacked. He's saying that he had this nasty blow, something really heavy hit him at the back of his head. He's saying that he's buried underwater.
And then went on to say that it was a lady that's going to help solve the case. It was a lady that was short hair, nice eyes. He also mentioned there was going to be a television appearance, and after that,
the crime will all be solved.
But is Diane right? Has Mark been killed and buried underwater? Were the police wrong in thinking he is just missing?
Myra was really taken back. I remember seeing her slumped in the chair, just couldn't believe what I just told her. And she said she was shaking with this tape in her hand, saying, I know what I'm going to do with this tape. I'm going to pass this on and get it to the police.
The next day, Myron sends the tape recording of Diane's séance to the police. It lands on Detective Daly's desk. But will it convince her that Mark is not a missing person?
Mark is telling me that he's not missing. He's been murdered.
Detective Marcella Daly is in charge of the missing person investigation.
I think on hearing the tape, my feelings were a little bit mixed at first. It's a very difficult thing to kind of listen to, but I thought it was important to remain open-minded.
He's saying he's got jeans on. He had a denim jacket on at the time that he was murdered.
She came with information with regards to the location, interesting information connected to Mark's parents, but she also came up with information with regards to me, which was quite surreal, really.
There's a police officer, a lady. She's got short hair, lovely eyes.
And she described me as a key figure in the investigation.
On the tape, Diane can be heard describing Mark's appearance, his movements that fateful night. She tells of a blow to the back of the head and a burial underwater.
There were some elements that weren't what perhaps you would call guessable. You know, there was some information, some factual information with regards to this inquiry that we purposely kept out of the media. And Diane had touched on a number of these points.
Detective Daly asks Mark's parents' permission to contact Diane.
Approaching Alan Dawn about the information in the tape was a little bit difficult, but they felt like any information that was coming through on Mark, that it really needed to be looked at.
I had a phone call then from the West Midlands Police, Marcella Daly, and she was asking me, how do you know about Mark's murder? How do you know all these details? There's no way you could know all these details. She was very much taken back as well, and I felt I was being really questioned, big time. So I just answered as best as I could and tried to explain that I'm not a crackpot. Mark is in the spirit world, and he's given me the information.
Got very good vibes from speaking to her, and she seemed genuine and very supportive to what she wanted to help, and she agreed to come down to Birmingham to meet me.
I was really nervous when I was invited up, but pleased as well, because I felt I'm going to get closer to this. I'm going to help Mark to hopefully find his body and deal with it.
The involvement of a psychic medium was completely new to me, but she had vital information with regards to Mark's disappearance that really I couldn't afford to ignore.
Detective Daly decides to team up with psychic Diane Lazarus. She takes her to the place where Mark was last seen alive. Can she make a psychic connection with Mark and help convince Detective Daly that he has been murdered?
She felt a very strong feeling to walk in a particular direction, and that direction was actually supported by CCTV footage of Mark, and in fact it was actually the last footage that I had of Mark. The CCTV here, just that one there, we've actually got a picture still of Mark just standing here actually chatting to somebody. We don't know who that person is and they haven't come forward.
I could literally see Mark ahead of me and he's saying, walk this way.
Diane believes that Mark is guiding her and Detective Daly along the route he took the night he disappeared.
To him. Mark literally showed me in great detail which way to walk. Just want to go straight down here.
Okay.
We said take a left here, take a right here. Because to me, he's coming through really distressed at this point. And he keeps taking me as if he wants to sort of drag the both of us down this area all the time.
Quite clearly, I had an understanding of where Mark had gone, and Diane, without having that information, walked that route, and I followed her and listened intensely to what she had to say.
I don't feel he was alone. Somebody else was with him, and this guy that I feel is certainly not a friend that's with him at this point. It's as if he was staring Mark out. I kept looking at him, staring at him. It's as if he wanted me to see into his eyes, and I felt as if I was drawn into this guy's eyes. And he said, can you see what I've seen?
Walking with Diane as she was talking about how Mark was feeling, providing this information, it was quite unusual. Certainly the trained detective in me that was very much used to dealing with factual information was still remaining very open-minded. I didn't disbelieve her.
I was pleased by Marcella because she questioned a few times, but she took in all the information that I gave her. which was brilliant. And she accepted what I was saying. She didn't try and sway me anyway. She said, do you think he was here? How do you think he looked? Which way did you describe him? You know, all the right questions she should have been asking, really.
After 5 hours walking, Diane Lazarus and Detective Daly arrive at this housing estate in Birmingham's Highgate district.
This is definitely it, definitely. And I remember actually getting to some flats, and he kept saying, Diane, here, this is the place.
The psychic connection is now stronger than ever. Mark begins to reveal the full horror of what happened to him that night.
He was really hitting him and beating him up. When Mark was pushed down and kept being pushed down, he had a blow here, right there, at the back of his head. The impression he keeps giving me is that his head was put down.
But police have no information to suggest Mark would ever come to this area of Birmingham. He didn't have any friends here, and it's miles from his home.
It was really horrific. It was frightening. When I was actually standing there, and hearing this information, it was unbelievable. I was looking in thinking, you know, where are you, Mark? He kept saying, you're not going to find me here. You're close. You're not going to find me here. But I'd been taken away, and I could see black bags being laid out. It was terrifying. For me, even, I was in a right mess, and I felt awful. And I thought, these people are going to think I am nuts to say these things to them now.
But the walk has a dramatic effect on Detective Daly. Her growing suspicion that something sinister had happened to Mark is now confirmed. She decides to upgrade the missing person case to a murder case. Diane Lazarus has done her job. It's been several months since Mark Green was first reported missing from home in Birmingham, England. With the help of psychic Diane Lazarus, police are now treating his disappearance as murder.
Because of some supportive information on the tape, as well as a very intense investigation, the decision was made quite quickly to upgrade the investigation to a murder investigation.
It's incredible, but a tape recording of a séance is being used by police to catch a killer. Using information provided by Diane Lazarus, police begin to search whole new areas of Birmingham.
Diane provided particular information with regards to locations and areas and materials that she felt were important, and that information formed part of my searching of areas.
It's an agonizing time for Mark's parents.
The waiting for Mark's parents was just completely devastating. Not only Mark's parents, but obviously key family members, and also Mark's partner at the time. And there was just no way of actually describing how completely devastated they were as every second ticked by, really.
But despite their best efforts, the police find no evidence of Mark.
It was very frustrating for me as the main officer in the investigation, not to find Mark when I felt so committed to finding Mark.
It isn't just Detective Daly who's growing frustrated.
The length of time that Mark was sort of waiting for this case to be resolved, it was actually frustrating for Mark. But in that time, I actually did his mum a reading, and his dad. And Mark actually told me that there'd be a television programme, and after that television programme, the whole thing would be actually solved.
This is the second time psychic Diane Lazarus has said a TV show will lead to the crime being solved. The first time was during the séance over 5 months ago.
When Diane spoke on the tape, she mentioned the use of media, a wide range of media, but also that we'd be attending a TV show.
Incredibly, in May 2002, Detective Daly is called and asked to take part in a talk show.
There's going to be a television programme.
With Diane's words ringing in their ears, she agrees to take part.
I certainly felt with regards to Mark Green that we really could not afford just to ignore it, and felt I had to justify to the inquiry, and felt I had to do it for the parents.
And Marcella rang me and said there is going to be a television programme, and I was really taken back. I remember watching it and thinking, it's not going to be long now.
A very unusual step, but it felt...
During the programme, Detective Daly is criticised for using a psychic in the investigation.
This was a real help?
It enhanced the investigation.
Yeah, I noticed you used a very kind of careful word there, enhanced.
It was quite critical of the approach that I had personally taken with the use of clairvoyance mediums. What I stress and what's important for any family that's considering this, that there are lots of people out there that will take advantage, quite clearly, but there are still people out there that have talent and do want to actually help people when they're in such a vulnerable state to find missing loved ones.
The broadcast comes as a shock to one man in particular. Scared that the police are closing in, he decides to save himself and step forward with information about Mark's disappearance.
A person called James came forward and basically provided information to say that his brother was responsible for the murder of Mark. And that he was responsible for helping his brother dispose of Mark's body.
I was pleased that this gentleman had walked into the police station and obviously said that he'd been involved in committing the crime, because it's exactly what I'd said. I said there was going to be a television programme, and from that moment on, I knew somebody was actually going to own up to it, so to speak.
Incredibly, Diane was right. A television show has brought a killer to the surface. But what did happen to Mark on the night he disappeared, and where is he now? James's brother, Robert McMahon, is a neo-Nazi with a history of violent crime. Police arrest and charge him with the murder of Mark Green. But despite intense questioning, Robert refuses to confess to the killing, but James does talk. He tells police that Robert killed Mark on the night of January 17th in his flat in the Highgate district of Birmingham, the exact location Diane led Detective Daly to months earlier.
I remember Marcella giving me a call up and saying that the place where I'd taken her was actually a spit away from where Mark had actually been murdered. So it was well worth going up to Birmingham and taking that walk.
Before this case, Diane Lazarus had no connection to Birmingham. There is no way she could have known either the area or Robert McMahon. So how did she come so close to the murder scene?
Weeks before, months before, I was standing in the spot thinking, I can't be in the right place, no way. And yet, that information was brilliant.
Sometime after the murder, Robert McMahon takes Mark's body by taxi to his brother James's house in Coventry, 50 miles away. With James' help, they bury him under a pond in the back garden, just as Diane had seen in her horrific vision months earlier.
When I found out that Mark's body had been buried under a water feature, it was just unbelievable. It just proves that Mark's detail was so phenomenal, really.
On June 7th, 2003, a forensic archaeologist is brought in to excavate the site. As each layer of soil is carefully removed and analyzed, a body is discovered. 12 hours later, human remains are exhumed. After forensic tests are complete, the body is identified as Mark Green, and the cause of death is finally revealed.
When Diane described how Mark had been murdered, and when Mark's body had been found and forensic information came to light, it was quite factual that Mark had been killed to a blow to the back of the head.
When I found out that Mark had died from a blow to the head, it was confirmation for me that Mark was giving me the accurate information at all times.
How did Diane Lazarus know where Mark was killed, the cause of death, a blow to his head, and that he was buried underwater? The information she gave to police is all well documented and far too accurate to be guesswork. Diane has only one explanation. Mark told her.
I really feel I've got a duty to the spirit world because I feel I'm employed by them, so to speak. So when I'm given information, I really try and act on it straight away.
At their trial, it takes just 1 hour for a jury to find both McMahon brothers guilty.
Robert was sentenced to life for the murder of Mark Green, and his brother James was sentenced to 2 years for helping dispose of the body of Mark Green. I think Mark's parents had basically been to hell and back, with Mark's disappearance and murder. I think the case, when it came to an end and when the two were found guilty and sentenced, was a relief to both Anne and Don. But again, it just re-emphasised the great sadness and the great loss in their life.
But why did Robert kill Mark? Was it because he was seen leaving a well-known gay bar? Was this a homophobic attack? Or was he just in the wrong place at the wrong time? If this was just a random act of violence, would police have solved this case without Diane Lazarus' information? One thing is certain, Diane's prediction that a TV show would lead to the crime being solved did encourage Mark's normally reticent parents to appear on TV with Marcella Daly. Without that show, James McMahon may never have come forward and given evidence against his brother, Robert.
I think Diane was helpful in solving this case. She certainly enhanced the inquiry and provided information that led to a number of lines of inquiries and obviously with the end result of finding the people that were responsible for Mark's murder.
To this day, Diane says that Mark still appears to her. She feels he is one of her most trusted spirit guides.
It still comes through, I still have conversations, and it's fantastic, actually.